toda parte de Puerto Rico. Esta bomba yo la dedico a toda mi gente de Puerto Rico, a la familia Fontanet, allá en Cupe Alto y Lo Mejía en Vega Baja. ¡Que gocen! ¡Sí! Bomba, bomba, para siempre. Bomba, bomba está presente, aquí lo canta mi gente. Bomba, bomba, para siempre. Baila, baila y goza, mi bomba puertorriqueña. Bomba, bomba. Bomba, bomba. Bomba, bomba. Bomba, bomba. Bomba, bomba, para siempre.
this archaeology. Get out of there, Dan!
All right, and now we're on, and our mics are live.
Are we actually live?
We are. We should be.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Hey, let me go back to my thing. Yeah, we're all live.
All right. Well, welcome to anybody that happens to be listening to this in real time. We're recording this on Friday, the last Friday of 2022, before we head into 2023.
Yeah.
Richie and I have had a hard time connecting the last few weeks to get one in before the end of the year. It's just been so busy. I've been hanging out with family. We don't see these people but once a year for this whole month, and it is just it is just a lot. Just so many things to do. So
Oh man, you were lucky. I literally got COVID right before Christmas.
jeez, yeah.
Yeah, so I've just
That
been stuck
sucks.
here.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, you made it over to see your mom or something a little bit, didn't you? Over in the Bay Area.
For Thanksgiving, yeah, but not for Christmas, obviously.
Oh, that was back in Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, yeah, we're over here in North Carolina, and
Yeah.
it's been all right. Although, of course, right before Christmas, everybody's pipes froze except
Oh,
for
really?
us because we're in an RV. Yeah, there were temperatures that people that have lived here for decades have never seen temperatures this cold in North Carolina. That cold snap that came through that dumped a bunch of snow on Reno,
Yeah.
and then everywhere else, no snow here, but it got down to 10 degrees overnight for 2 nights in a row.
Oh.
And
Oh
yeah.
my God! That was the worst snow/wind I've ever seen. And guess who had to drive out that day to go to work?
Yeah, I bet.
And basically, let me paint the picture. I mean, if no one at home's gonna know what I'm talking about. But basically, I was climbing out, going up 395 or 580 to 395 out of Reno, and I'm in the slow lane, not doing anything. And a big gust of wind picks up my truck and basically pushes it across 2 lanes.
Jeez.
And I should point out that I have snow tires and my truck is fully loaded in the back.
Right.
And so I let off the gas, the truck kind of just recovers, and I keep going a lot slower, obviously.
Wow,
And
that's crazy.
as I'm driving to Carson City, there are all these cars that were in the fast lane that also got pushed by the wind because the roads are pure ice at this point. So basically they got pushed straight into the median.
Wow.
And a few
That's
off-roady looking trucks that basically were flipped over as I pulled off the 390, as I pulled off 580 right on the Carson.
Right. That's crazy. And all I see over here is videos, mostly from Interstate 80, because anytime there's a snowstorm, there's people off the road and trucks jackknifed on 80 between Reno and Sacramento. So yeah, it's crazy. But we stayed, like I said, relatively safe down here. It just got cold a few nights, and we actually bought, when we were in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, last month, just before Thanksgiving, they had a cold snap as well. And we got burned a year ago. In fact, a year ago next week, we were going from North Carolina over to Arizona, and we spent the night in Amarillo, Texas in our old RV, our last one. And the water bay in these RVs, where the water pump is and where you hook all your water up, it's basically outside. I mean, there's a door, but it's not heated, and it's just kind of open to the elements for the most part. And we had never been in those kind of cold temperatures, and it got down to 7 degrees overnight in Amarillo, Texas that night. We were just parked in a visitor center parking lot overnight because that's all we needed.
Yeah.
We woke up in the morning and the water pump was cracked. Didn't work, frozen and cracked, and our jacks wouldn't go up and our slides wouldn't come in. And there were just all kinds of problems. Cost us $1,000 to get out of there because we had to have stuff fixed.
Really?
And it was just it was a huge pain in the ass. And so this year, I mean, obviously the Jackson slides, they're a little bit different. They're hydraulic in this rig, so that we shouldn't have too many problems there. But the water pump, so our water bay has a couple of 110 outlets. And I went and bought a small ceramic heater, and I just got that sitting in there. It only does, it'll only raise the temperature by maybe 20, 30 degrees, but that's all it really has to raise it by. And, because when it got down to super cold here, it was about 36 in the water bay, because I've also got a little Bluetooth thermometer down there that I can check on my phone. And it got down to about 36 at the lowest point in the water bay, but 36 isn't freezing.
No.
So it's fine. We can still use it, because we had to disconnect our hoses from the park water supply at the RV park, because you can't stay connected when you're when it's that cold out. You have to, even if you shut the water off, it's best to just disconnect the hoses, because there's water all inside the mechanism there, and it could freeze and just crack your fittings. So we disconnect everything, make sure we're full of water, but we still need the water pump to work so we could use it. So yeah, it was crazy.
What's interesting is that the weather here has been the opposite of northern Nevada winter. The other day, I was like, man, it is so warm. I can't even believe I'm wearing these winter pants.
Yeah. Well, after after that cold spell went across the whole country, it just got warm again. Like I think the high today was 60 here. So
it's just like here.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but you guys have, I don't know if you're working next week, but I keep seeing the atmospheric river that's coming through.
I know.
California, probably going to end up being a whole bunch of snow in the Sierras too.
Oh, well, I mean, God. Basically, I was already told this week that, we're not going to send you out to do anything.
Is that because of the weather, or is just they're not ready for it?
Both.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I will say that, you know, I am firing up Word today and doing a few things. I'm not going to say what those are, but basically,
well,
but one more thing about the weather is the fact that it was like 35 miles an hour during that giant snowstorm all the way from Reno to basically Bishop.
Jeez.
And I got pushback from like, are you sure it took you that long? Like Google says it only takes like X number of hours. And I'm like, are you joking? Like, are you fucking joking with me?
Yeah.
And then of course there was also pushback about when I left because here the storm was basically whiteout conditions right up until about noon or 3, and that's when I left. And they're like, you're supposed to get there during daylight hours, and I'm like, do you want me to get there, or do you want me to get there during daylight hours? Because technically those are not going to be the same things.
Yeah, when there's only like 8 daylight hours and it's severe weather, you've got little time to play with.
Exactly.
So,
and it's like, I'd rather just get there. Although I will admit, it was quite a shock to because I used to live in Pasadena right before I moved to Reno, and it was kind of a shock to be able to work there. Like I'd always been trying to work there, and then suddenly I had but ultimately I had to move to Reno because all the work was Reno, and then I was there for like a couple of days. And I'm like, thank God. Like this is this would have been the dream like 10 years ago before I moved to Reno, but whatever. Right.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to sunnier things. Did you get or buy yourself anything for the holidays that you're excited about?
Oh my God.
I saw one thing on Facebook or on Instagram.
Well, here's the thing. When I was well, I'm not going to put it up yet, but basically when I was down in Pasadena and, going from warm, sunny Pasadena up to crazy snowy Angeles Crest, I was trying to take a selfie, on the snow, and my phone was freaking out, like completely freaking out. Like, no matter what settings I used, it would have me in focus, and then it would decide, no, that's not actually what I'm supposed to be focusing on, and then not focus on me. So there I was, and I had to move because of snow plows and everything. And I'm like, man, I really wish I had like something else I could use. I mean, I did have my big DSLR, my big Nikon, but then I'm not going to put that in a selfie stick. But I remember that years and years ago, Canon used to sell what they call the G series. This is this is the G5 from 2003, which means will be 20 years old soon. And the crazy thing about it, I mean, not to get all nerdy on everyone, but basically the thing about this versus the newer ones is the fact that they did not use a newer, smaller battery. So it uses the same big battery that their DSLRs use. So it runs forever. And it's compatible with all the Canon flash units. So nice. Even though it sounds crazy, I actually was playing around with this last night, and I can mount this on a selfie stick and take photos myself.
And it's not too heavy, and you can do it remotely, or you just set a timer.
Amazing, Lenny. That's the other thing about this camera that's cool, is that Canon used to include remote controls with their cameras, and they haven't done that for like decades, but this was one of the last ones where they still included a remote control. And it's not just...
Yeah, I remember.
Go ahead.
No, I took a photography class when I was in college back in...
Yeah.
It was a black and white photography class when I was in college back in early 2000s. And I had to pick up, I actually bought a Canon camera. Obviously it was a film camera because we had to develop the film and all that stuff. But it was, but shortly after that, I purchased and I don't even remember, one of the EOS Rebels, right?
Yeah.
I think it was, but it was a Canon digital SLR. It was my first digital. It was my only digital SLR I've ever owned, and I bought that right around that same time. And I'm pretty sure it came with a remote.
Yeah.
For controlling it. Yeah, I remember that.
And the thing is, because I have a Bluetooth remote for my phone, but that only like fires the shutter. This will actually, the Canon one actually lets you like, zoom in, which is super cool. So basically I was playing around with it I was playing around with it last night, and theoretically, if I ever leave the apartment at any point, I could use it. It's a long story, but I haven't had much time off like during the weekends. So when I'm here, I usually am just like, I'm usually just like hanging out. So during these extended breaks I've been having, basically I've been cleaning. So I spent the last 3 days like cleaning around my stove, like all the grease stains. And it still looks terrible.
Yeah. And we don't often talk about archaeology on this show, but I will bring it back to something because you just mentioned this. So many people I've talked to, they're like, especially when we lived in Reno, full time and when we were doing projects and stuff like that all the time. And you get non-archaeology friends, because my wife for a long period of time worked at a business that was not archaeology. And so we ended up having a bunch of friends that were her friends from work. Well, no, not right now.
I figured.
But she, there's no bad blood there, but I don't need to give them free advertising. But anyway, so we ended up having a bunch of friends that weren't in archaeology. And I remember, especially when I was down on like the El Centro and China Lake projects or anything else where I was out, for 10 days and came back for the weekend or something. Yeah. They're like, oh, you guys want to go do this? You want to go do that? You want to go do hiking? And I was like, I just kind of want to just like be at home right now. I'm like never at home. Yeah. Yeah. And people just don't understand that your home really ends up becoming like your sanctuary. It's where you want to go home. You look forward to it. Yeah. You go there. I remember I loved having like comfortable spaces to just relax and read or do something. And you just really need that. You need that anyway, but I feel like it's especially more if you don't spend a lot of time there.
Oh, this leads me into something. It's been so long since we talked. You might not remember this, but in Archeo Field Techs, there was a post about someone asking about how do you bring up burnout with your boss. And like, I remember a few people, and they were like, you don't bring it up, otherwise they'll never hire you again, blah, blah. And then other people were like, my God, what are you, like 1,000 years old? So I was like, man, like, cause I feel like, when we first started, like when we were working in the same office together, like, that office manager, if you had brought up burnout, probably would have been like, I'm never hiring you again. But I also feel like it's 2022, and I feel like it's changed. And like, are you going to bring that up on Archaeo Field Techs or CRM Arc or anything like that? Or do you have any opinions you can share now?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good topic that we could talk about, especially starting to, think about the 2023 field season. And for a lot of people, there is no break. It's just like, keep on working, just like you, if you're down in California, there is no season. It's just like, you keep going. So it's a lot. And I guess my feelings on it are, I mean, if you're definitely feeling something and like you just need you need an extended break, or you need something, if you know that your office, the one that you're working for, maybe has some options and you're not like the only person in the world that can do the job that you're doing, then it behooves you to say something and just be like, listen, I don't know what it is, but I'm just like feeling like I need some home time or something like that. You have to be able to afford it too, because they're probably not going to pay for you to just take some time off. No. But if there is maybe some office work or some work from home stuff that you can do, processing records or something like that, it doesn't hurt to ask. And maybe you don't even have to say why, right off the bat. You can just be like, hey, I've been in the field for a long time and I really got some stuff I want to get done at home. Is there any way I could spend like a session there and do some work from home stuff, and just, is there anything that can be done there? That's how I would bring it up, because the big problem is, while there's a hiring problem in CRM right now. We hear that from Heather on the CRM Art podcast. There's too much work and not enough people. So they want to keep people generally. There's probably not somebody beating down the door to get into your spot, because it sounds like everybody who's employable is employed, according to what we're hearing. So right now, that's not a problem. But that being said, if you've got a small company that you're working for and everybody's position is basically spoken for, then if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, somebody else is going to have to do that. And there's going to be a shuffling that takes place. And legally they're obligated to do those kinds of things in certain circumstances, like maternity leave. If somebody needs to take maternity leave, they have to have a job of equal pay and equal responsibility waiting for them. It might not be their exact job, but they have to have something similar to what they were doing waiting for them when they get back. But while they're gone, someone has to do their work. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's true. And you can't bring in a temp.
Well, no. Well, you could. I think you actually can, but you just have to get rid of them when the person gets back. So they have to have a job waiting for them.
Like God, I mean, like temp agency temps.
Oh yeah, well for archaeology especially, temps aren't qualified to do what we're doing. So, yeah, it's crazy. So honestly, I would bring it up, especially if you're considering it. If you're thinking that burnout is, if you're already to the point where you're thinking about asking about it, you're probably too far and you're burned out, right? Yeah. So the time is to is to either bring it up to your employer, and if you don't think that's a good idea because you know your employer better than we do, of course, then I would say don't say anything and start looking for a new job, and maybe take some time between those jobs if you can, if that's in the cards. Of course, there are times where you're just stuck either way. You got a crappy employer, or there's nothing else you can do there, or, there's no other work you can get for whatever reason. So I don't know what to do in that case.
That's not as hard though these days as it used to be.
That's true. There's plenty of places you can go work, especially if you're willing to drive for it, and willing to go. So, and I don't know.
Oh, and hi, Christian. If you're looking at the chat.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Haven't seen Christian in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy New Year, man.
But, oh my God. Like, some of the responses though, that I saw were just like the sort of things you would have seen 10 years ago. Like hide it, don't say anything, just suffer it. I'm like, I feel like this is like it should be a new era, shouldn't it? I mean, like, I literally just signed up for dental yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm like, 10 years ago, like, medical, dental, and vision would have been like an impossibility.
It still is for a lot of places too, unless you're working for one of those big companies, or if you're a contractor or something, obviously that's not going to happen. But if you're working for one of those smaller companies and you're project to project, it's going to be hard for them to get you signed up for that kind of stuff, because you're just not there long enough for it to even kick in. Like with dental, you can sign up for dental and you can get your 2 cleanings this year, every 6 months or whatever that is, or however many cleanings they offer. But if you need any like non-emergency work, like if you've got some tooth that's been bothering you and you need a crown or something like that, that shit's not going to be covered for at least a year. Oof. And that's just how it works, right? That's just how it works. Now, some plans are different than others, but that's why you don't often get that with CRM jobs, because you're only there for a short period of time, so if they've got a lot of work and you're more permanent with them, then it behooves them to put you on the plans. But unfortunately, most projects are not conducive to that. That's why we need, and I've said this for a long time, I've always wanted to start a company. That's what the whole Team Black concept was when we were doing Team Black, the whole training thing. The training was supposed to lead into essentially a temp agency, for lack of a better word, for archaeology, right? Where it really is people who are fully qualified to work in different parts of the country, and you send them out to work on projects, and you bill the company, the parent company, and the company just pays them whatever their salary is, regardless of where they're working. And then they can get benefits, they can get, all the stuff that comes along with working for a company long term, but they're still working project to project around the country.
I mean, how many people are already looking on Indeed for field techs? Like, I mean, it's happened. And not just Indeed, but LinkedIn. And like and Indeed is basically almost what you're talking about, except more focused.
Yeah, for sure. So, right. I don't know, man. It's it's a tough call to build a company that could do that. But then again, some larger national companies are essentially doing that, like Swika and some of the other large companies that have offices all over the country. I mean, if they got work that needs to be done somewhere and there aren't enough people to do it, they'll just move people around, so
that's true.
That's essentially what we're talking about, but on a on a third party scale. not a primary company scale. So, but I think even big companies could use that, because sometimes, like let's take Swicca for example. They may win a big pipeline project and need 60 people for 2 months. Well, they can't just move everybody in the country over to that project, because there's work going on in those areas too. So,
That's true.
There might be some offices that could stand to lose their people for a little while, but you also have to have people that are in certain circumstances qualified to work there. Now, if you're in one of the one of the eastern states where you're just shovel testing, I mean, there's literally no qualifications for that, right? There's like no state qualification. There's nothing saying you need to have X years of experience. You just go work for the company, you dig shovel tests, right? That's easy.
True. But
if you're going to work in Nevada and you have to be on a BLM permit, you need to be permittable, right? Yeah. You need to be something like that, or any BLM office for that matter, in the whole entire West. So,
which reminds me of when that office closed down, the one you and I both worked for, and they found that they couldn't finish any of the reports or have them signed off on because they had fired their whole Nevada staff. Oh, hang on, I can't quite read that. Hopefully you can read that. My screen's being blocked.
Christian here says he transitioned from CRM to GIS and gradually transitioned his GIS skills to other industries, which is brilliant. Working as a GIS analyst for the planning department of local government. They're having the same hiring problems. These are full-time positions with really good benefits. I mean, I can see that, and I've said that forever. I'm glad to hear he's done it. Is find a skill in CRM, to stay in archaeology if you want to, but try to find a skill that you can do within the company that is transferable to other industries, right? GIS is a really good example. And you know what other skill is I can think of two other things that you can learn really well at your company, and it can be transferable to other industries. One of them is surveying, so total station work, things like that. You always see people who are working for DOT or something like that are running total stations and doing those things. Those are skills that some people have a hard time learning that kind of stuff. So if you've got those skills and you understand it, it'll be good. But you know what the other one is? Flying drones.
Oh, yeah.
So many industries are using those. You go get your FAA Part 106 license, and what you can do, you can do it for about $1,000. If you don't have a pilot's license, you can do it for about $1,000 with the training and taking the license. Because you need to learn some stuff through formal training, and then you need to actually take the FAA test, the exam, and have it signed off by a flight instructor. So it's but you can do it, and you don't need a big, fancy, expensive drone to do it with either.
No, I mean, they keep it. I mean, when drones first came out, like the cheap drone was literally like the, something that you'd find in a toy store. And now DJI sells like their mini. I always forget the name of their entry level one, but it's
the mini.
Yeah, that's like mini. Incredibly well featured considering where they started from.
Well, and here's the thing too: you don't actually need a drone to get your Part 106 license. You don't have to know how to fly one either. The 106 license is all about, like, there's no flying test along with that license. So it's all about regulations. It's knowing when to fly, when not to fly, and the regulations involved around that. And you get into some, like every FAA test has stuff about weather. They love to talk about weather, so they'll talk about different meteorological conditions and stuff like that you can fly in and things like that. But, the reality is, you don't actually need a drone, and you don't have to know how to fly a drone to get your 106. So go get your 106 if you have the time and the money to do it. You can probably find them cheaper, and you can probably do it cheaper if you're willing to do a lot of the training on your own. You just have to go pay for the test. And if you do all that, then when you get to a company, you can be like, hey, listen, I've got my 106. I just need to learn how to fly. So there's probably somebody at the company that can teach you that.
And I'll admit that's probably in bigger demand than the total station, considering that, like, I mean, it depends on, I always forget where you draw the line, but basically it seems like west of the Mississippi, like, almost no companies have a total station.
Right. They're becoming more difficult to find, honestly, because, well, I mean, not difficult to find, but difficult to find on a project, because unless if you're doing projects in the East where there's a lot of excavation, there's probably a lot more likelihood that there's a total station on site. But there's also other precision ways to take GPS coordinates these days too. You don't always necessarily need a total station anymore. I mean, you can have a sub-centimeter, handheld unit on a pole, and you don't really need a total station. All you're doing is collecting points. Total stations are for so much more than what we use them for. Usually we just use them for collecting points, but they can be used for lots of different things. And now that we have other ways to collect those high precision points, I would imagine you're going to be seeing a lot fewer total stations out there.
Oh,
So-
the other day I was looking at digital tape measures, and they were advertising those as being, lay out a room, lay out this, lay out that. And I'm like, oh wow, a lot more precise than what we used to do in the olden days. Like, when we were at Monte Cristo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've played around with a real tape measure in my iPhone 12 Pro Max here.
Yeah.
And this was one of the first ones. I think this was the first one. Maybe the 11 was, but either way, with basically the enhanced augmented reality. And even if you use just like Apple's own measuring app and you want to measure from, the top of this wall, the bottom to the top of that wall, I mean, it is on within a very high degree of accuracy. Right. Ooh. And you might want to do it a couple times to get a good measurement, but it is surprising how good those things are. And if you have a device that's really more made for that, you could probably lay out a unit in augmented reality and just, lay out the whole square on the ground and then have the tablet or something just sitting there on like maybe a tripod or even just sitting nearby, as long as it can see the ground, and then direct people on where to put the stakes, and there'll be a 1x1 unit.
Ooh. Oh my God. Speaking of Apple products, by the way, have you heard about the people who have been in car accidents in like cell phone dead zones? And like that new Apple satellite feature will actually prompt you to call, will actually be able to put a call through for you.
Oh, really? I didn't know about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently the new gen iPhones come with satellite receivers, or I guess it'd be more like a transceiver built in. And I was reading about I don't know why, but Google knew that I was like in Angeles Crest, and basically that's what happened there. Some people ran off the road, and it was like, it's basically a cell phone dead zone. As soon as you like leave like, the urban areas and like go up in the mountains, it's like a cell phone dead zone. And so this one couple was like, oh yeah, the cell phone, my iPhone, basically the screen was cracked, but I was still able to like, choose things. And so it's like, did you get into an accident? Yes. Do you want to send a message? Yes. Do you want to call emergency service? Yes. And then, suddenly they were saved.
Well, the new phones and definitely the new watches this year have the automatic crash detection. They've had fall detection for a long time. And in fact, man, I remember one time, it was back in Reno, actually, and I was walking out of something, and I don't know what I was doing. I was looking up or around, and I didn't see the curb. And I came down the curb, and I landed wrong, and just like went straight down onto my knees and roll over onto my back. And my Apple Watch started freaking out, going, "Did you fall? Do you want us to call 911?" And I was like, "Wow, that's really accurate," because I can like bang my fist on the table, and it doesn't do that, right? Yeah. So it's got the metrics in there, and it knows the motions. Well, I've got the new Apple Watch Ultra.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I picked this up a couple of weeks ago. And it was kind of my Christmas present, and to myself anyway. And this one has not only the advanced crash detection, but it's got some other stuff as well. And this thing has so many crazy features on it. It's also water resistant to.
Yeah, it's supposed to be water resistant to like what, 200 meters?
Something like that, yeah. And it's also got it's got like a radio beacon, like a sound, like a high frequency sound. You can hear it. It's not like it's just for dogs, but it's got a really loud pitch that's supposed to be able to be heard by, for a long ways away. So if you're out on a trail somewhere and you like fall down a cliff, but you're still alive and you hear rescue personnel up there, you can set this off and they'll hear it. And you can also do like Morse code tones and the flashes on here, like from the little flash from the flashlight are more programmed, but there's a lot of features. It's also got a dual receiver GPS, so it's an incredibly accurate GPS.
Ooh. So just like the Garmin watches now.
They're really competing with Garmin with this new watch, very much. Yeah. So yeah, and it's bigger. I like it because it's bigger. It's just got a much bigger display. Yeah. So, and it's got an extra button now. Apple Watch now has 3 buttons. So you get the Ultra.
Oh my God. When you were talking about the beacon, it reminds me of the olden days before, when you were like surveying through like heavy brush and people would start up that Marco Polo game. But then there'd always be that one person who was like, didn't want to join in because they're like, this is stupid. And then end up like completely crossing everyone's line. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, somebody always crosses the line. Yeah. I mean, if you're old enough, you always remember that person who's like, how did you end up over there? Like, weren't you like right next to me?
Yeah. For some reason, this isn't even close to that story, but for some reason that reminds me of surveying with you down in where were we? Down in the Pancake Range, Nevada, I think.
Oh my God, yes.
The pinyon juniper, and we were going up and down these little fingers, and I'll never forget looking back, because I think we were just going someplace, and like all your flags were hanging in a juniper tree because it got ripped out of your flag tube.
Oh my God, that was bullfrog.
Bullfrog, yeah. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
So yeah, there were some fun times on those projects.
I mean, I thought you were gonna bring up the time that person, basically did not want to climb hills, and like, I'm not gonna do this. I have children. Yeah. They were just sitting there crying on the talus slope. Yeah, I had never seen a person paralyzed by fear so much. I mean, I'll give you, there were some pretty hairy areas out there, but they were just so paralyzed with fear because of the terrain and moving around it. They'd never been in anything like that before. It was crazy. So yeah. I mean, oh my God. I mean, let's play a game. Would you rather do that, or would you rather crash through briars?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like whenever I hear someone from the Southeast talk about, oh man, I love it here, I'm like, are you sure? I mean, we have a couple of friends, Karen and Bob, who like worked in like East Texas for like the past 2 years, and I'm like, isn't that supposed to be a terrible place?
Yeah. That's one thing I don't miss about the South, man, is crashing through briars in the summertime. Now in the wintertime or in the fall, or even like late winter, when it's just starting to get into spring and they're all dead. I mean, you can just put your screen and shovel out in front of you and crash through whatever you want. You just make a hole because it all cracks around you. Yeah. And even the stickers, they might poke you a little bit, but they're not immovable. Like I still have scars all over my arms just from doing survey in the Southeast in the early 2000s. I mean, it was, oh my God, it was a lot. So yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my God. That's interesting because, every once in a while on Archeo Field Techs or the other one, people are always asking about gear recommendations. And you can always tell where someone's from based on what they recommend. Like, oh my God, don't buy those pants. They're going to get ripped up, blah, blah, blah. Whereas, whereas I feel like in Reno, it's like actually the boots that get ripped up.
Right.
Way worse. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to like return boots to REI, but they do ask you. Oh, you have? Did they ask you what you did for a living?
Listen, the only time I've ever done it was before they really changed their return policy. They used to have a no questions asked return policy, and people would return stuff that was 20 years old. And I returned a pair of boots and exchanged them for a new pair. It was probably 10 plus years ago when I did that, but it was probably my first time working in the West, and they were just, I don't know. I don't remember where I was, but my boots were just like destroyed. And I brought them back and got a new pair, but I know they've changed their policy since then. It's now limited, and they ask you questions like, what do you do for a living? Yeah. And by the way, Christian, I knew Christian would have something to say about this because he works in the Carolinas and the Southeast, and he's like, don't miss that. Definitely talking about going through the briars and stuff. So,
wow, I didn't realize he worked in the Southeast. That's
yeah, for sure.
Because
if he's still where he was, I think he was in South Carolina last I heard. So I can't remember.
But we used to work with people who like every year they would just bring back, not even sometimes every year, sometimes twice a year, they would just bring back boots to REI. Like, oh, this didn't work for me. Can I get another pair?
Yeah, for sure. So.
Oh my God.
Nice.
Oh wait. So I was curious. I was listening to most of the latest CRM Arc podcast, but what was your guys' conclusion about whether conferences are worth it?
Well, I think honestly, I think it depends on who you talk to, because like me and Bill have gotten pretty soured on conferences, to be honest with you. And and Bill even more so. He's been in the governance and management of some of these conference organizations, right? Like he's really tried to get up there and make a change from the inside. Yeah. And just talking to him either on the show or in other conversations, I'm like, I always tell people, it's like, if you want to see a change in something like RPA or something like that, well, you got to get elected to these things and then or join the committees or whatever. And then do the, try to make the change from within. And Bill's like, dude, I've tried that. And you could just you can see where the jam is, but you can't clear it up. And it's just, it takes too much.
Well, before we get to Christian's comments, I just wanted to ask something Far Western, they seem to view these conferences as really good advertising. What does our Far Western see in conferences that you think that other companies don't, or are the companies just lazy? Because to me it seems like really good advertising for a company to have entire panels filled up with your archaeologist.
Yeah, and obviously we mentioned that in the show. As Far Western, just they dominate conferences sometimes because they do so much work and they promote the presentation of information like that. I think it is good if that's what you're going there for. But I always try to say, why are you going to the conference? Why does the conference exist? Is it for you to present research? Is that why you're going? And if so, I don't feel like that's the best place to present your research. You know what I mean? If you're in one of the more popular sessions that everybody wants to hear about, like the paleo sessions, all the pre-Clovis stuff and things like that, those are always well attended because a lot of people want to know the answers to those questions. And if you've got a whole session on that, they're usually standing room only sessions. And that is a good opportunity to not only put out your latest research, but probably have conversations in the hallway after that, or at the the lounge, the hotel lounge after that, and talk about some of that stuff. Keep that conversation going. But 9 times out of 10, you're in a room with 4 other people, and it's just not beneficial for whatever field you're in or whatever thing that you're studying to actually present this stuff at a conference. It's just not worth it. You'd be better off coming onto a podcast and talking about what you're doing, because you're gonna get thousands of people hearing what you're gonna say.
True.
Versus or write a blog post or do something and put it on Twitter. You'll probably get a lot more comments and engagement if that's what your goal is.
Although I was gonna say I remember going to the SAAs when they were in Sacramento. And I feel like a lot of people were inspired by that. Oh God, what was it? Was it blogging archaeology or?
Yeah,
God,
I was.
Yeah,
that kicked off everything I've done. That kicked off my Twitter account, my blog, and eventually the podcast network.
See you, Christian.
Yeah. Oh, see you, Christian.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, it was. And Heather's take on it was Heather really likes to go for the networking aspect of it. Heather's a mover and a shaker at conferences, and she likes to go there, talk to people, and not only just talk to people, but meet with people, set up meetings. And, I think Heather told me once at the California meetings last time that she ends up not even seeing that many papers, but
me too.
A lot of the people she talks to are people she only sees at conferences, and they all gather together, at that one point, because it's just easier to do it there.
Although she did bring up a good point, though. She brought up the point that you have to be the sort of person who's into networking, because if you're just going there expecting magic things to happen because you're there and you're shy or introvert, that's nothing's gonna happen.
Networking takes at least 2 people.
Yeah.
It can't be done with one person. So yeah, for sure. So I don't know. I think I'm unless something really changes, or I don't know. I'm interested in working for a conference. That's the role I want to have. I just envision having a booth at the front of the like something like SAAs or SHAs that's big. I want to have a broadcast style booth that's at the front of whatever book room they have, because that's where everybody goes. That's the meeting point for the conference, is the book room. And I want to have that, and I want to have people there all day during the conference, maybe swapping out a few different hosts and pulling people in, scheduling some interviews with some key people there, like the conference director and the, keynote speaker, stuff like that. But have it live streamed and have it so people can interact with it, and, have it be a formal production that's basically owned and administered by the conference. But I'd like to be, part of that sort of thing. They're just not. Archaeology conferences just aren't ready for that.
No,
they're just not ready for that kind of thing.
I mean, when you had the APN booth, how many people came up and asked, "What's a podcast?"
Yeah, so many, right?
And it's like, how do you get that? How do you get across what is a live stream then?
Right. And I feel like I've done conferences way wrong with the APN, and I've tried lots of different models too. I've tried just But I do think that I don't think I've failed at it.
Yeah.
I just feel like I didn't do it exactly the right way. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do each conference I did with an APM booth. I'd do it differently.
Ooh, how'd you do it?
Well, the thing is, from a business standpoint, you got to say, what's your focus? I'm going to spend $1,500 to go to this conference or more.
Yeah.
When you factor in the booth fees and airline tickets and just, getting everything there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spend a lot of money. What is my goal here? And I feel like the goal early on was to just tell people about the APN because they didn't know anything about it. But I should have had a side goal. Well, I couldn't have before we had this, but I guess back in the day, we didn't have anything else to offer. It was just, these are podcasts. Join us, listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
But now, we have a much bigger focus on membership so we can try to, sustain this whole thing because we need members to be able to do that. And so I would have a big focus on signing people up for memberships, and I would have a big focus on possibly selling advertising to people who run companies and things like that, and trying to get them into that, because nobody seems to see podcasting as a viable route for advertising in the CRM world, in the academic world, or in the like for job postings and things like that. It's just not something they've been approached with, so they don't really understand it. I've talked to a few different companies and they've been like, oh, this sounds like an interesting idea, but we just don't know how to do it. We don't know how to deal with it.
From a marketing
standpoint.
All the proof the success, all you have to do is ask like HelloFresh or Blue Apron.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that book company. I forget the name.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a few of them out there actually. But there's I when you look at these different things, again, it's just like getting people to actually advertise and come on and do stuff is really tough. Possibly we won't have to worry about it for advertising coming up here in Q1 because Zencastr could be changing everything for us, but we'll see. So
to put things in perspective for people out there, the post office has a podcast now.
Yeah. Jeopardy has a podcast.
Wait, they do?
Yeah, I see it advertised on the show all the time.
What are you talking about?
They talk about tactics and techniques, and they bring people from the Clue crew on there, the guys that are doing the clues, and I don't know if they bring former contestants on or not, but they I think they talk about the shows and the clues that were on there and things like that. I don't know. I've never listened to it, but I see them advertising it.
Oh my god, that's like some of the podcasts I've listened to where they're literally like they pick their favorite TV show and they just talk about it. Like, it's not even like a current one. Like sometimes like I was listening to someone who was like, we did just start a podcast dedicated to the obscure 70s English TV show, The Prisoner. I don't even think they had a full season, but and they're like, we were so shocked. There are so many others of us too.
Yeah. That's nuts. Yeah. Man. Well, anyway.
Before we move on, I'm not sure if you've listened to like the new the post APN Dirt podcast, but they actually were they were doing podcast, I don't know what you'd call it, like podcast organizing at the SAAs, and they sound like they want to do it in the future.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I haven't actually caught up on them yet, but they were always interested in doing stuff like that.
Well, it was confusing at first because they were re-uploading all their podcasts. I'm like, I think I've heard this one, and then I stopped paying attention, and then I'm like, oh, that's a new one.
They shouldn't have had to do that. We ported the feed over.
Oh,
so everything should have just gone in. Yeah.
Well, apparently their feed was on SoundCloud, and they moved it to a more permanent service or something.
Oh, okay. So maybe in the middle they tried to move it to SoundCloud, because I did a redirect from Megaphone, which is where it was here.
Yeah.
Over to whatever new hosting service they're using. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't SoundCloud. It was something else. So all this stuff should have gone through. And when you do a 301 redirect, it shouldn't prompt a re-download for subscribers. That's why you do it. Like, for example, we did a 301 redirect of every show in the APN a month ago over to Zencastr from Megaphone. And hopefully you didn't get 3,000 episodes downloading all at once.
No, thankfully. So, although that did happen with one of my other favorite like entertainment podcast.
Yeah, there's definitely wrong ways to do it. So but anyway.
Oh wait, weren't you gonna mention your fancy new headphones, by the way?
Oh, that's right.
Oh God,
Yes.
they're black. I thought
So
they were silver.
they're kind of the space gray that Apple does.
Oh.
So they're not black or silver. They're like dark silver. That's a color.
Wow.
No, I love them actually. They there's two buttons on the top here. One is a digital crown, similar to that's on the watch, and it's a push button as well.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's like your volume, and if you're selecting something, whatever, that's what you would do it by.
Yeah.
And the other one is a button for turning on and off transparency, basically, transparency and noise canceling, which I really like in a studio set of headphones. So, if you're not familiar with it, transparency, like I'm sure other headphones have it, but I've only had Apple headphones for like my AirPods. AirPods came out with transparency a couple of years ago, which means you can not only turn off the noise canceling, but you can actively hear stuff around you. So if you're out jogging or something like that, you probably shouldn't have noise canceling turned on. You should probably be able to hear stuff around you. So, you can hear cars and horns and things like that. Or if you're biking or whatever, people always say don't bike with headphones on. And that's probably right. But if you have the ability to still hear everything around you, then it's probably okay. Well, I didn't even think transparency was possible in studio headphones because my ears are completely covered by the headphones, but they've done it. And when I turn on transparency, all the noise canceling goes away and I can hear everything around me, and also through my headphones, which is pretty cool. Oh, wait,
do you have it on now, or I guess off, or would it be on?
Well, I've got noise canceling on right now. It's actually very noisy above me.
Oh,
so yeah, I'm downstairs in my sister-in-law's basement, and there's 3 children up there. Well, 2 little ones that can walk, and they're not quiet. So in fact, I've got to go up there soon because we're going to head out in a little bit here.
Ooh.
But anyway, I love these things. They're not cheap. They're about $600.
Still?
Yeah. Well, I think they're like $550 or something like that, $549 or whatever, but it ends up being $600 with like taxes and stuff.
Wow.
But one of the things I really do like about them too is I didn't think I would like this at first, but here's the case. They don't expect you to put them in a full case. You really just, this is a magnet. Like that. And you really just flip the ear cups sideways and drop them down in here.
And that's the only way to turn them off, right? Or they fix that?
They actually turn off immediately when you pull them off your head. They disconnect from everything and they turn off. But
they didn't used to do that.
No, a nice thing about Apple products is when you bring them, when you put them back on, they reconnect to whatever you were doing.
Yeah.
So, and it works out really well. So I think it's going to probably save me on battery quite a bit. I've only charged them. I opened them on Christmas Day, and I've used them quite a bit this week. So it's been like 5 days.
Yeah.
And I've charged them once since I got them. So, and one of the things I like too is I use my headphones for meetings all the time. And, sometimes with my late night meetings that start at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll have been using my headphones all day. And then I realized 20 minutes before that meeting that my friggin' headphones are dead. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I'll plug them in really fast and try to do it.
Yeah.
Well, these have a specific charging mode when they're close to death, when they're close to empty, where 5 minutes will get you an hour and a half of use. So it rapidly charges for a minute, and then for a few minutes, and then then goes back into a more stable charging platform, so you don't like destroy your batteries. So yeah, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, I like them.
Oh my God! Not to turn this into an Apple show, but have you tried DaVinci Resolve yet on your iPad Pro? Because I hear that they're compatible with them now.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet. I haven't done a lot of video editing lately, and what I have done is through ScreenFlow. Some of the stuff work training videos I'm doing for my job, for my business. I'm doing some of their videos, but there's a lot of screen recording happening. Yeah. So ScreenFlow is just better for that. So I mean, I could theoretically take that video off and edit it somewhere else, but until I have that ability to do that on the iPad, no, I haven't really tried it yet. But that's, I mean, I saw some articles about DaVinci Resolve being like the game changer for really, I mean, every year they come out with a new iPad. They're like, this is the death of the laptop and the computer. And now it's all, but it's not true, right? No. People just start making apps that are the same thing. Like I still can't edit podcasts in a way that I'm comfortable with on the iPad. And I've tried a few of the good apps out there, but nothing's like Audition. Well,
the thing is, it seems, I mean, they're the same. They've got the same architecture as laptops. So really, the only the only bottleneck is iOS. Like, if it can run full Mac OS, why not? And just make it like touch friendly.
Right. And I think that's where it's like the problem with electric cars, right? The problem with electric cars is not electric cars, it's infrastructure. That's
True.
why people aren't excited about electric cars, because, you know, even us, we're like, you know, my wife is like, oh, you can't tow an electric car behind an RV, which is why we're not getting one, but like a full electric car.
Yeah.
But she was like, listen, I would, if we wanted to buy a Tesla, I would drive it behind the RV, but she's worried about the average 250 mile an hour, 250 mile range, because a lot of times when we go somewhere, it's at least 250 miles. And you know, when we're driving the RV, so we'd have to pull over and charge like lots of times. And I'm like, yeah, but that's an infrastructure and a battery problem. It's really not a problem with the electric car. And it's the same thing with this, like, who's going to build the infrastructure so we can have more electric cars, right? So that's kind of like a push pull thing. Yeah. It's the same thing with using the iPad or any other you know, computer style tablet. Developers, I feel like, are just waiting for Apple to say, yep, iOS or OS just works on Apple now. There is no iOS anymore. It's all the same thing. That's what they're waiting for. And Apple, I feel like, is waiting for developers to do proof of concept and develop a version of their software that runs fully on iPad without any constraints. I feel like both teams are waiting for that to happen, and nobody's willing to put in the resources to do it yet. But we all know that it's going to have to be Apple that pays for that to happen and just puts OS on a tablet.
Because, you know, for me, you know, I haven't used a lot of iOS, but I have used like Android, you know, and the thing that really irritates me about Android oh God, I'm starting to lose track of all the names. Basically, the iPad OS is the fact that multitasking is not as convenient as it is on a regular desktop. Yeah, you know, like that weird split screen thing. Where, you know, even if you could resize it, it's not quite the same. It's just like being able to click from one app to the other.
No, and they've honestly though, they've taken care of a little bit of that. There's now something called what is it called, center stage or something like that, where it doesn't work with every app and it actually takes a lot of screen real estate to use, but there's a thing where you can have like your last 5 apps that you're using off on the side in this kind of like weird little tray thing. But when that exists, the app that you have in focus is taking up less space, and you can actually kind of move things around. And what they're having problem with is screen real estate. There's just not enough screen to do what they want to do, and people want their stuff a little bigger because I don't know, unless you've got like perfect eyesight, you don't want everything really, really tiny on there, so you can fit more apps on the screen. They know people aren't going to do that, you know, so they're having a problem with that. But you know, when you've got a keyboard hooked up to a tablet, everything works just the same. Like I can switch between apps with Command Tab. I can do, you know, switch between different things, and it's just a lot of that stuff just works if you have a keyboard and a mouse hooked up to your tablet. And there's a new thing called it's not Sidecar. What is it? They have these weird names for stuff, but I can basically run my mouse to the edge of my laptop if I've got a tablet on the same iCloud network. If I run it to the right, if I force it, if the mouse hits the wall and it stops and I force it, it does this little push through thing. And then my mouse appears on the iPad, and I don't have to set up and tell it where it's at. It knows it's on the right side because I pushed through the right side. And then I can use my laptop keyboard and mouse or trackpad on the tablet, and vice versa. I can use that keyboard and trackpad on my computer if I wanted to. So it's pretty seamless too. It works really, really well. So
I mean, that's very similar to what, oh God, I always forget, but Logitech has something like that, and I don't know how long they've had it since I don't use it, but still. Right.
So, all right, well, we're gearing up to head out to dinner over in this parts of the world. So,
wow, I always forget how late it is for you.
Yeah, it's only 4:30, but it's going to take like an hour to get where we're going.
And any place good?
No, it's a pizza place they want to go to. Apparently, it's a really good pizza place, but we're going with the girls and the little baby, and they all have bedtimes that are like 7 o'clock. So we got to get all this done before then.
So I know that next week is next week going to be a quiet week for the APN, or is there anything interesting coming up?
I mean, all our regular shows. Rachel and I have one coming out on Sunday, the first TAS of the year. on calendars. I was just curious about the history of different calendars and stuff, and so we got one coming out on that. Honestly, I don't remember what the hell else is coming out. It's yeah, all the normal shows that are coming out next week. Man, I'm just drawing a blank. But either way, tune in, and we got a lot of good stuff. So we do have another.
Yeah.
Go to culturalmedia.com. We don't have it up yet.
Yeah.
We will have it up probably next week, but the next Culturo Share event, which is happening in mid-February, will be up on the website hopefully by the end of this week, because we finally nailed down the speakers and the theme, and we'll announce all that later.
Oh, so you can't announce the theme yet?
I probably can now, but I got to look it up. Give me 1 second. So yeah, I just don't have it in front of me because I'm not the one organizing it. But we were looking at April already too, or May actually. We're going to have the next one, but
yeah,
let's see. So the theme is digital heritage and archaeology. And we've got Gary Dempsey, founder of Digital Heritage Age. I don't know what that is. Thomas Flynn, cultural heritage lead at Sketchfab, and Carolyn Jaffra, founder of Immersive Heritage. So some really cool speakers talking about some really cool stuff. And it will be February 19th.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, good. I thought you were about to say the 14th, and I'm like, man, a lot of people are going to tune in that day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that's it.
That's cool. Oh,
right, man.
Oh, man. I always thought it was interesting when you were talking. I mean, not the, obviously I've got to go too, but it's like, it's interesting the way that stuff like live streaming, stuff like this is viewed, by these old people conference organizers.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to start, like, if this gets popular enough, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to start pushing back, like you're releasing like super privileged data or, all that sort of bullshit.
We're not releasing any data. That's not the point of our cultural share events.
Yeah.
It's to talk about ideas and have an open dialogue.
I mean, and that's how you get ahead of the, oh God, I always forget that Netflix dude that everyone's talking about. Or whatever. Oh God, I always forget. But all the pseudo archaeologist people.
Oh yeah, Graham Hancock.
Yeah. That is Netflix, right? Or is it something else?
It's Netflix. Yeah. Yep. So. All right. I gotta run. Hope anybody listening to this before the end of the year has a good New Year. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and then hopefully sometime in 2023. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.